The transition from a raw, unarticulated idea to an impactful business communication is a process of deliberate construction. It requires the communicator to act as both an architect, responsible for the message's structural integrity, and a strategist, responsible for its psychological resonance. This chapter addresses the two fundamental pillars of this process: mastering the architecture of the message itself, and developing a sophisticated understanding of the psychology of the audience. A failure in either domain results in a failed communication. A structurally sound message that misreads its audience's motivations is as ineffective as a psychologically attuned message that is poorly organized and unclear. Part A of this chapter provides a systematic framework for message construction. It covers the development, structuring, and refinement of ideas into a coherent and purposeful communication, designed to achieve a specific, measurable impact. This section focuses on the tangible elements of crafting a message. Part B shifts the focus from the message to the receiver. It moves beyond basic demographics to introduce advanced models for analyzing audience motivations, values, and perspectives. This section furnishes the analytical tools necessary to tailor the message architecture for maximum resonance and influence, transforming a simple transmission of information into a genuinely persuasive act. The central thesis of this chapter is that the effectiveness of a message is not inherent in the idea itself, but is rather a function of its careful and empathetic design, a design that is both structurally sound and psychologically attuned to its intended audience. The foundational principle of effective communication is that messages are not simply transmitted, they are interpreted. Every receiver processes information through a unique filter of prior knowledge, cultural context, personal interests, and cognitive biases. Therefore, a message structured solely according to the sender's logic is unlikely to achieve its objective. Structuring for receivers is the discipline of organizing information in a way that anticipates and aligns with the audience's thought process. This necessitates a shift in perspective from "what do I want to say?" to "what does my audience need to hear, and in what order, to understand and accept my message?" This principle leads to two primary structural strategies: the direct approach, deductive. The communication begins with the main point, recommendation or conclusion, followed by supporting evidence and details. This approach is most effective when the audience is receptive, time-sensitive, or the message is routine or positive. It respects the reader's time by presenting the most critical information up front. Use case, a weekly project status update to a senior executive. The direct approach begins with, "Project Alpha is on track for a Q4 launch," followed by key metrics, rather than starting with a detailed history of the week's activities. The risk of not using this approach is that a busy executive may discard the message before reaching the main point. The indirect approach, inductive. The communication begins with context, background information, and supporting reasons, building a logical case before presenting the main conclusion or recommendation. This approach is necessary when the audience is likely to be skeptical, resistant, or when the message conveys negative news. It allows the communicator to guide the audience's thinking, establish common ground, and soften potential resistance before delivering the core message. Use case, proposing a significant unbudgeted capital expenditure. The indirect approach would begin by outlining the problem the expenditure solves and the risks of inaction, thereby building a business case before stating the final cost and request for funds. Idea development is the process of substantiating a core claim with sufficient evidence, logic, and detail to render it credible and compelling. An undeveloped idea is a mere assertion, a statement of opinion, which is unlikely to influence discerning stakeholders. A developed idea is an argument, a claim fortified by reason and proof. The process involves several distinct stages, beginning with conceptualization and followed by logical sequencing, Crucially, each point within this structure must be fortified with appropriate support. The choice of support should be tailored to the audience and the claim. Quantitative data is persuasive for analytical audiences. Expert testimony lends authority. Illustrative examples make abstract concepts concrete, and case studies provide narrative proof. From a managerial perspective, the rigorous development of ideas is a proxy for rigorous thinking. It demonstrates due diligence and builds confidence in the proposed course of action. The introduction and conclusion of a business communication serve critical strategic functions and represent the points of maximum leverage. In an environment of information overload, these are the sections most likely to be read and remembered. An effective introduction must accomplish two primary objectives: capture the audience's attention and orient them to the message's purpose and structure. It must immediately answer the receiver's implicit question, "Why should I devote my attention to this?" A strong introduction. Checklist. The hook. A compelling and relevant statement, question or statistic to break through the noise and engage the audience. Context. Briefly establish the background or problem that necessitates the communication. Purpose statement. A clear, concise declaration of the communication's main objective. Roadmap. A brief outline of the topics to be covered, which manages expectations and improves comprehension. An effective conclusion must provide both psychological closure and a clear path forward. Its function is to synthesize the key takeaways, reinforce the central message, and articulate a specific call to action. A strong conclusion checklist. Summary. A concise restatement of the main points, solidifying them in the audience's memory. Reinforcement. A final emphasis on the core message or its importance, often linking back to the introduction. Action step. A clear, unambiguous instruction on what is expected of the audience next, including deadlines and responsible parties. Goodwill. Closing. A brief professional closing that fosters a positive relationship. Effective communication in a business context can be defined as the successful transmission of a message that is received, understood, and acted upon as the sender intended. Its effectiveness is governed by three overarching qualities. Clarity. The message must be unambiguous and easily comprehensible. This involves using precise, concrete language over abstract jargon. A key challenge to clarity is the curse of knowledge, a cognitive bias where the sender unconsciously assumes the receiver has the same background knowledge. Effective communicators overcome this by defining key terms and providing necessary context. Conciseness. The message should convey the necessary information with efficiency, respecting the audience's limited time and attention. This requires eliminating redundant words, avoiding tangential information, and focusing only on relevant details. In a managerial context, conciseness is a form of professional courtesy. Coherence. All parts of the message must logically connect to form a unified whole. Transitions between ideas should be smooth and clearly marked with signposting language. For example, first, in contrast, therefore, ensuring an intelligible flow of thought from beginning to end. This concept moves beyond the static design of a message to encompass the dynamic, interactive process of communication. A message delivered without a mechanism for response is a monologue, a broadcast sent into the void. Communicating with receivers, by contrast, transforms this monologue into a dialogue. It implies a fundamental commitment to a two-way exchange, viewing the audience not as passive recipients but as active participants in the creation of shared meaning. This dialogic approach is built on several key practices. Establishing feedback loops, formal loops. These are structured, official mechanisms. Informal loops. These are the spontaneous, real-time channels that capture sentiment and nuance. Interpreting digital body language. In a modern workplace, many non-verbal cues are transmitted digitally. A manager must learn to interpret this digital body language. This includes the tone of a chat message, the timing of a response, the choice of channel for a reply, fostering psychological safety. A true dialogue can only occur in an environment of high psychological safety, where individuals feel they can speak up, ask questions, or voice dissent without fear of punishment or humiliation. In a managerial context, this practice is transformative. It is the mechanism that converts compliance into genuine alignment. A broadcast can secure compliance, but only a dialogue can build alignment. The former is fragile. The latter is resilient and fosters autonomy and trust. The impact of a communication is the measurable change it produces in the receiver's knowledge, attitude, or behavior. Achieving the right impact is the ultimate objective of all goal-oriented communication. Informational impact. To increase awareness or understanding, the goal is comprehension. Example: when announcing a new internal software, the informational impact for the IT support team is that they fully understand its technical specifications and support protocols. Persuasive impact. To alter beliefs or influence decisions. The goal is agreement or buy-in. Example: for the same software, the persuasive impact for the sales team is that they believe the new software will help them close more deals and are motivated to learn it. Directive impact. To compel a specific action. The goal is compliance or execution. Example: for the same software, the directive impact for all employees is that they complete the mandatory installation process by the specified deadline. A manager must consciously design the message's content, tone, and authority level specifically to produce this predetermined effect. Monitoring is the systematic process of gathering and analyzing data to determine whether a communication has achieved its intended impact. Any significant communication initiative targets a complex ecosystem of distinct stakeholder groups: internal versus external audiences. Internal audiences, employees, and external audiences, customers, possess vastly different levels of context and motivation. Primary, secondary, and tertiary audiences. The primary audience is the employees. The secondary audience includes the managers. The tertiary audience could include potential future hires. Gatekeeper audience. This is a crucial, often overlooked audience who has the power to either block or prioritize your message. The T-Plan is a message structuring framework that formalizes the receiver-centric approach by forcing the communicator to build the message entirely around the audience's anticipated mental journey. The hierarchy of motivational stimuli categorizes audience motivations: security and safety, reward and recognition, social and relational, self-actualization and purpose. Managerial application, announcing a new mandatory training program. A poorly framed message might appeal only to level 1. A more sophisticated message will appeal to multiple levels. Level 1, safety. Level 2, reward. Level 3, social. Level 4, purpose. The VALS, Values and Lifestyles framework, is a psychographic segmentation system. A message for a thinker should be rich in information, data, and logical arguments. A message for an achiever should emphasize success, prestige. A message for an experiencer should be framed around excitement, novelty, and immediate impact. Digital nativity and attention scarcity. Audiences are inundated with information across multiple digital platforms, leading to diminished attention spans. Managerial implication. Communication must be concise, visually engaging, and optimized for mobile consumption. Key messages must be front-loaded. Global and cultural diversity. Organizations now routinely communicate with global audiences. Managerial implication. A high degree of cultural intelligence is required. Understanding concepts like high-context cultures and low-context cultures. Demand for authenticity and transparency. Modern audiences are often skeptical of traditional, highly polished corporate messaging. Managerial implication. Communication must shift from polished broadcasts to authentic two-way dialogue. Authenticity builds trust. Employee as advocate and activist. The boundary between internal and external communication is porous. Employees are now key external ambassadors and, in some cases, activists. Managerial implication. Internal communication must be treated with the same rigor and strategic importance as external communication. By consistently applying these principles, you will build a reputation for clear thinking, empathy, and strategic purpose. Your ideas will not only be heard, but they will be understood, embraced, and acted upon. You will move from simply informing people to genuinely aligning them towards a shared objective. You become an architect of understanding and a strategist of influence, capable of building consensus, driving change, and achieving lasting success in your career.